Welcome to a new edition of Planet Waves TV. My name is Eric Francis, the host of PlanetWaves.fm and the editor of PlanetWaves.net, here with a short discussion of the coronavirus pandemic that's going on. Obviously, a very serious situation, and many people are concerned about this. The number of deaths surpassed 1,000 deaths over the weekend, and there's something like 40,000 cases, I guess, and the number is increasing rapidly. And wanted to share a little bit about what I know about these kinds of pandemics and the reason for the concern, and also take a look at the astrology, and then report back in finally with a discussion I had with the pharmacist at one of the world's leading homeopathic laboratories, where I call to seek a little bit of additional information. So first, let's consider why it is that health authorities get as nervous as they get, and why the newspapers get as nervous as they get. The reason for this is because lurking in the back of everyone's memory, fairly recent memory, is the 1918 global outbreak of what was called at the time the Spanish flu, now known as H1N1. The flu had nothing to do with Spain or anything Spanish. It was just misnamed that for some reason. I forget the reason. I guess about 80 million people died. It was extremely virulent and also a very powerful flu. People could be perfectly healthy in the morning and drop dead in the afternoon. They would fall off their horses, or could be walking down the street and just collapse. And so in the collective memory of the let's say public health officials is the memory of this, and how fast something like this can spread. Additionally, what is not often talked about, and what should be talked about more, is that we're in the middle of a global immune crisis. We all heard about AIDS, the acquired immune dysfunction syndrome, which started to spread in the early 1980s. Earliest known case is 1968. This was not known to be AIDS at the time, but a sample of a person who died of a mystery disease, a young guy who died in Chicago, I believe, was preserved, kept frozen all these years, and that turned out to be HIV that killed him. So just FYI, the first known case of HIV was in 1968. But that's not the extent of the immune crisis. The immune crisis is basically coming at us from every direction, and includes suppressed immune systems and overactive immune systems. Both we see a lot of both going on. If you watch TV, which I admit to watching a bit too much of, half the drug ads are for immune suppressing drugs that warn you not to take this drug if you've visited the forest of Peru or something like this. To tell your doctor where you've been, lest you become subject to some outbreak, that your body's been suppressing some bacteria or something that your body's been suppressing. And then in addition, we're under assault from toxins from every conceivable source, including every breath of air and every bite of food that we eat. The level of Roundup is ridiculous. The amount of spraying on roadsides and on food is just ridiculous, and that's only one modern herbicide. There are many that are used, and then there are things that are left over from previous eras, like lead, arsenic, and DDT, and then there are and Agent Orange, which is still being used on food, and lawns, and then there are also all of the background contaminants, so-called background contaminants. That includes a lot of the leftovers from previous eras that have since been banned, but still manage to be present, as well as dioxin and dioxin-like PCBs, which are spreading far and wide. Add that to the stress level, and then add that to the electromagnetic radiation situation, and it all adds up to a lot of immune suppression. And so a combination of a virus in an immune suppressed environment is a very, very dangerous combination. And so in addition to this kind of institutional kind of reptile brain and historical memory of Spanish flu and H1N1, now we're living in a world where there's all kinds of immune suppression going on, and that is something to take care of. If you want to take care of yourself, one of the first things to take care of is your immune system, and the way you do that first is by what you don't expose yourself to, what you don't put into your body, the chemicals that you get out of your house and out of your diet. Includes every form of cleaning chemical, stick soap, water, vinegar, and that you'll be fine. You can clean almost anything with soap and water and vinegar. In addition to all of these chemicals that inhabit our kitchen closets, or under the sink and the bathroom, that would include anything with some artificial fragrances and artificial flavors and all that. Just stop using it. Get it out of your life. It cannot hurt you to get it out of your life, and simplify and reduce the number of total exposures, which reduces the number of synergistic effects, untested effects of one chemical applied with another chemical. This is a really serious problem in the whole field of toxicology that is not talked about, is the synergistic effect. That if you've smoked cigarettes all your life, an exposure to dioxin is going to be much more serious than if you haven't smoked cigarettes your whole life. All right, let's take a look at the chart, the chart that I'm using as the reference chart is for the 1918, actually 1718 outbreak of H1N1. The most deaths were in late 1918. This is not a chart for the flu. It's a chart for the armistice, the ending of World War I, which is my reference. It's a reference point in time, basically, and also a synchronistic event. Because as any historian knows, particularly health-related, that the ships coming back from World War I were the scene of many, many outbreaks of H1N1. Many people died on the ships. They were very, very ugly scenes, except where there were homeopaths assigned as the ship's physician. And in 1918, homeopathy was a legitimate form of medical science, and has since been reduced to a kind of a new age phenomenon that you go to a talk in the bookstore, which I'm going to in a couple of weeks. But it is a form of medical science, every bit as valid as what we currently have, in some ways much more so. But I'll come to that in a moment. So the signing of the armistice was in November of 1918, and this was basically the sky picture at the peak of H1N1. Included a conjunction of Chiron and Eris in late Pisces. That's it right there, Chiron and Eris in late Pisces. In this chart, Chiron has progressed into early Aries. Chiron is in early Aries now, and so we are at the second Chiron return of the H1N1 1917-1918 outbreak. Chiron has a 50.7-year orbit, so we're right at the Chiron, just past the Chiron return. Now, if you move the chart out 100 days for progressions from the armistice into early 1919, we have an exact Chiron return going on at this time. Okay. Then the other thing that I think is intriguing about this chart is how much water sign activity there is right now. And in this chart there was the Pluto Jupiter conjunction, which is being opposed by a lot of stuff in Capricorn down here, not shown. And then there was this Venus, come in closer, the Venus Sun conjunction. And now Neptune is in Pisces, forming a grand trine to these things. This too could stir up fears that there's something that could happen. And again, the people who are dealing with this problem know that they have no power over it. I mean, this is the thing that's behind everything, and we don't talk about it, and that we take for granted. With the vast amount of money spent on medical science in our society, the line that seems to be missing from the newspaper coverage is, apart from palliative care and making sure that people have enough fluids and are kept warm and all this stuff and don't expose too many other people. There is nothing that can be done. There's no vaccine. That takes a while. It also takes time for the virus to mutate and become less powerful. So again, here we're talking about the ounce of prevention being the pound of cure, in terms of take care of the most important thing that will prevent any disease for you, which is your immune system, which means get rest, avoid chemical exposures, eat real food, and do what you can to lower your stress level, and pay attention to the drugs you're taking, and know which of the drugs you're taking, if you're taking any, hopefully you're not, are immune suppressing substances. Okay, so earlier this week I contacted the pharmacist at one of the world's leading homeopathic laboratories and said, well, I'm just curious, has anyone come up with the genus epidemicus for this, which is the homeopathic term for the remedy for the epidemic itself? And now, if you know much about homeopathy, you know that really is the case, it's the science of the individual case, which makes it resistant to the normal scientific method, and the remedies have to be tested other ways and tested over time. But in the case of an epidemic, there can be one remedy that can resolve the epidemic itself. So in the case of the H1N1 outbreak of 1718, that was a remedy called gelsemium, which is an anxiety remedy. It's an anticipation anxiety remedy. The thing about all influenzas, and also something like Ebola, is that they almost always come out to a remedy that is on the fear spectrum of remedies. The Ebola outbreak of about 5 to 7 years ago was most closely harmonized with rattlesnake remedies. So we're talking about primal extreme fear. And from what I've seen of flu situations, fear is the thing that they have in common. So in 1718, the genus epidemicus was gelsemium. So I call the lab, and they say, well, no, actually, there's not anyone who's come up with this. They may not be done anymore. There may not be a homeopath with sufficient knowledge of or authority to get the attention of the community. There are some very well-known and respected homeopaths who are difficult to reach, but this one lab, the biggest lab in the U.S., didn't know of a genus epidemicus. That would help. In the case of the 1918 flu, the ships that came back from I'm sorry, I had to do this video twice. Sorry if I said this. The ships coming back from the war, which had a homeopath on board, tended to have a almost 100% cure rate, and the ships without a homeopath, where an allopathic doctor tended to have almost everyone die of the flu who got it. And there was another problem going on where allopathic physicians were treating people with aspirin, which was making the situation worse and not making it better. So the homeopaths could get a result with gelsemium if the patient had not been treated with aspirin. Fever suppression is a very important thing to learn about, and learn why it's not the greatest idea in most cases. All right, so none of this is construed as medical advice. This is all historical information from the standpoint of a journalist who happens to be an astrologer, and take a keen interest in all of these subject areas. So that is basically what I have to say. This is not really a thing to worry about. I think if you're concerned about your health and you're concerned about pathogens, whether bacterial or viral, keep your hands clean at all times. Not Purell, not hand sanitizer. That backfires, and it also makes people lazy about washing their hands. Wash your hands a lot. If you have to, keep a bottle of, I have it here, witch hazel and a cloth, and just you have to remove the the dirt and grime from your hands, and not just smear it around with something. You want to, hence rinsing, and even just a little bit of soap or even just water. Rinsing is much better than something like Purell. So keep your hands clean, avoid hand-mouth contact, and take care of your immune system, and you'll fare a lot better. That's what I have to say to you today. Check out planetwaves.net. All kinds of great stuff, great articles. Horoscopes now are up there and easy to find. Classes and lots of fun, exciting things, including a new edition of Planet Waves FM. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and bye for now.